Bonjour, les Philippines, comment vas-tu? I got more. The French have unfortunately been on the receiving end of pretty heavy stereotypes, but not all of them are bad. For instance, they eat a lot of baguettes. And honestly, that's true because, oh my God, why wouldn't you? Then it's also said that they drink a lot of wine. That's also true, but honestly, I think it's just simply because that the world is just jealous about that. Then, here's the big one. They say that the French make great lovers. Where do you think the term ménage à trois came from? And then they've got some pretty cool stuff too, like the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Pepe Le Pew.
I am Pepe Le Pew, your lover.
And something called duck fat fries. Oh, the name alone is enough to get you hooked. Much like the front clip of this 2022 Peugeot 5008. Cela semble bon, eh? I told you I'd add more. Do you need help purchasing your car insurance? Head on over to AutoDeal.com.ph/car-insurance. Here, you can compare prices and customize your insurance coverage from many of the Philippines' top providers. When you've selected the insurance that's best for you, simply fill out the application and complete the transaction with ease through Visa, MasterCard, GCash, GrabPay, or PayPal, and receive your policy within the next business day. Get the best deal on insurance with AutoDeal. Peugeot was not the first manufacturer to use a lion as a logo, but they were one of the first, if not the first, dating back to like over 150 years ago when they first started creating products made out of steel to show the jaggedness and the sharpness of a lion's teeth, made apparent by an all-black grille and really very sharp chrome accents. You really can feel the sharpness. And then you've got whiskers down the side and lights that taper all the way down low, which kind of resembles like the fangs of a lion. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like an Escalade. Do we look like an Escalade or does the Escalade look like us? That's a totally different argument. Then you've got dips on the hood and an all-LED affair, from your headlights to your fog lamps to your DRLs. Everything there is LED, including the turning lights that you have there, which is that when you turn on your indicators or when you turn in either direction, an extra light goes on so you can see where it is that you're going. Down the side, you've got a lot more chrome accents, and I do mean a lot more. Starting off from up here, the roof rails, around the window sills, the side mirror has chrome on it, even the door handles, and for good measure, you've got even more chrome found down below. What I like about the side profile is that the B pillar and the C pillar are all black, and then it's surrounded by the chrome accent that I talked about, and it gives it a certain je ne sais quoi. I told you I had more. A sort of like sportiness to it, which I actually quite like. I also do quite like these 18s wrapped in 55 series tires, which I think fills the wells very, very well. It actually looks pretty darn good on the car. I like that. You've got ventilated discs up front and solid at the rear, sitting above 234 or 36 millimeters of ground clearance. Something to that effect. Now at the rear, you'll probably be able to tell that the car isn't actually very tall, which is rich coming from somebody like me. It's about 5 feet 6 inches tall and about 15 feet long, which in retrospect will probably be closer to what you see on the road in the terms of a CRV, but it's a little bit shorter and about 4 inches longer. Now the rear is very Peugeot in the sense that it may look like your average 5-door, but what sets it apart are the rear lights. These vertical lights are absolutely cool. And then you've got your sequential turn signals there. There's a lot of chrome all over the car and more so also here at the rear. Now, while some chrome is actually very welcome, some could be deemed as a little too much. And there are some that could truthfully kind of miss the boat, so to speak, because these twin exhausts down here, these chrome tips, aren't real exhausts. So I think they missed out on the opportunity there. It's not a real meal, it's an amuse-bouche. some might say. Told you I had more. When you open her up, you are looking at only 200 liters of space, which is not a lot because this may be shocking to some. The 5008 is actually a 7-seater. However, when you do fold the rear seats, which by the way are super, super easy to stow, I like that fact, you will be looking at over 950 liters of space for the rear. And then when you fold the second row, which will reveal a completely flat bed, you've got over 2,000 liters of space. And that, for a car of this size, is actually pretty darn impressive. Now, oh, sacre bleu, I forgot the seats. Now, the rear seats are not very large. They're definitely better for smaller passengers like myself, or believe it or not, even smaller than myself. The thing is, the legroom isn't spectacular because, well, there's a box here that sort of like houses the seats, which the seats are easy enough to fold, but if you can't bring your legs closer to you, then you're gonna have to ask the second row passengers to be a bit more generous when they give you some legroom, because it can get quite tight, the simple fact that you have to move your legs a little bit away from you. Now this is obviously the second row pushed forward. Now I don't know how comfortable it is going to be for the second row, but it's definitely doable for the third row. But for them to be a little bit more comfortable, they're gonna need to push that back. Toys back here, not much actually. There is one cup holder on one side and a couple of cubbies that don't really do much on either side. And then, of course, there's a 12-volt socket that you can find. Unfortunately, there are no air vents for the third row. There are lights, sure, that you need to share with the second row, but really, that's about it. So definitely quick trips inside the city. Nothing long, as the seats, like I said, are quite tiny, exposed to a lot of metal in between. So yeah. Definitely for much smaller individuals, even, like I said, smaller than myself. Now, here in the second row, it's obviously much more comfortable than the third row, but I'm gonna start off by saying the leather. The leather is something that I expected actually a bit more of. I'm not saying that it's bad leather at all. No, not at all. Far from it. It's actually pretty good leather. It's just that I expected a little bit more because of how good the front clip look. You see the front clip and you're thinking it's gotta be extremely premium inside. It's still good leather nonetheless. It's not Louis Vuitton or Yves Saint Laurent, but it's darn good leather and it feels good to the touch. But like I said, I thought I was gonna get a lot more because of how good the front clip looks. Now, we're talking about legroom now, and legroom is actually pretty darn good. That's my normal driving position, and this is as far back as the second row can go. Now, the legroom here is great, which means that the legroom in the back is like dead, right? So if I wanted to be a bit generous to the third row, I'd move it about halfway, and that's about halfway, and still pretty decent for my size in the second row. However, the third row, or rather the third passenger, that might need a little bit of compromise because then obviously this thing will be hitting their knees. So if there were a child in the third row, then that wouldn't be an issue. With adults flanking that child, no problem. And then you've got a little bit of space now for the rear. But if I were to be the jerk that I am and take up all the space, then it's actually pretty decent, really. Toys back here include bottle holders, obviously on either door, and not one, but a pair of speakers on either door. You've got your air vents found here up front with a USB charging point that's covered by a circle plastic, which is pretty cool, pretty French. And then you've got controls for your blower here in the center as well. No thermostat, just a blower controls. And obviously also a center armrest with just a rubber pad, not a charging point, just to keep something in place, with cup holders that pop out of nowhere. That's nice. And a cool feature too, if let's say, for example, you do have passengers in the back and they need a little more, I don't know, leg room, this cool function that this comes down and they can stick their legs there. Or if you have your third row stowed, then you have access to any parcels that you might actually need. That really does it for the second row. Oh, last I mentioned that you also have a share, obviously, of the panoramic sunroof, which a lot of people are saying that it eats up a lot of headroom. Well, obviously, I'm not the, here we go, tallest person on the planet, but it's actually okay. It probably would be more without the panoramic sunroof, but at this point, with my height, I'm guessing even those that were 5'8", 5'9", maybe even 5'10", I don't think that that would be much of an issue. Any more than that, might be banging themselves on the head like that. Oh, look, breaking the glass ceiling. Oh, dude, that's so old. That's so Hillary. That has nothing to do with this Comparo. Why did I say Comparo? The interior is nothing short of unique, really. Truly unique. First, you've got a dashboard that somewhat seems to float because it doesn't touch the sides over here and it seems like it's levitating. I like that quite a lot. And then it's got an iCockpit, which is innate to Peugeot. Two of those things that are in here, which is a smaller steering wheel with a instrument cluster right above that, and then a large touch screen. However, there are some quirks to it that might take some getting used to. For instance, the smaller steering wheel that I mentioned. When you're using the steering wheel and you want to be able to function, or rather use the instrument cluster, you don't actually look through the steering wheel to see what it is that's happening. You gotta look above it, simply because the steering wheel is actually positioned a little bit lower. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially for a shorter driver like myself. So I thought that it would be an issue for much taller drivers. So I asked Jack to try it out. But even with his height, which is close to about 6 feet tall, he also didn't have any problems using it. It might take some getting used to, but actually it's quite easy to be able to function with the steering wheel lower than the instrument cluster. Then we also noticed one other thing, which is that since the steering wheel is so much smaller and lower, the angle of your arm is actually much more relaxed. In a normal steering wheel at your 10 and 2 position, you'd be about yay, but here it's lower and it feels like there's actually less fatigue, which I think is actually pretty cool. Now, to say that this car has a lot of quirks would be like literally an understatement. Unfortunately, not all its quirks are great. For one, is that the cruise control is not located on the steering wheel. It's actually located on a stalk, and that stalk happens to be hidden by one of the pillars of the steering wheel. So getting to it is a bit of a hassle, and working it, well, you'd have to consult the manual because it's not as straightforward as other cars out there. And then there's the fact that the paddles, which are there, they're not very big and they feel a bit flimsy. But then again, I said not everything is bad. For instance, this material right here is actually pretty cool. It's sort of like jean-like almost, and it spans from underneath the main dashboard and goes all the way to the doors, and I like that. And then, well, it's not just here in the cockpit. There are more all over the car. For instance, the rear. If you need even more cargo space, you can remove the third row seats in a cinch. Not always for contraband, but there are also cubbies that can be found on the floor of the 5008. You can put some, I don't know, gifts for the kids in there. Oh mon Dieu! What is this? This is not French. This is not real Cabernet Sauvignon. The door panel stretches all the way down, and by doing so, it protects this part of the automobile. So any dirt or splashes of water or anything like that doesn't get on your pants or inside the car whenever you go out. And because this is a French car, when you open the center armrest, there is a spot for your bottle that actually cools it with air vents in there. Huh? How do you like them? How do you like them, French apple pie? Seriously, how much alcohol did we bring to the shoot? And lastly, instead of being in the center, the sunglass holder for the driver is, well, on the driver's side. I don't know how great that is, but it's a quirk nonetheless, like that fly that's flying around. Do consider giving us a like or subscribe because we do appreciate all these things so that we can create videos, guess who, just for you. Now, the 1.6 has a bit of a mid-range grunt, which is to say, it's understandable why people think that there is a bit of a lull when you step on the accelerator. That's understandable, but truth be told, I only felt that lull, so to speak, when I was accelerating ever so slowly or economically when there was an open road. In traffic, to be honest with you, the car feels like it's actually trying to save you as much fuel as possible, which is a good thing considering the gas prices nowadays. Although on open road, if you want a bit more of kick, there is obviously the sport mode that you can kick it into. And when you do that, it also tightens up a lot more. So it feels that much better and really, it feels like it's up more to the task when you keep it on sport mode. There are also other drive modes that are available inside this automobile, which suggests that it's more than just an on-roader because you can turn your traction control off. You've got snow, you've got sand, and even a mud function. That's pretty cool. The brakes are, well, something different, but in a really good way. Just like any other car, they bite, and they do bite very, very well. But with other cars, when you step on the brakes, there's a bit of a lock feeling. It's throwing you forward, and you know that it's putting its nails and claws into the ground. In this car, however, no matter how fast that you're going, when you're starting to slow down, it doesn't exactly, push you forward, so to speak. What it does is that it's somehow like a lion going at full speed. It comes to a halt and then it sort of like crouches down. That's the only way I feel as if that I can describe it. That's what it feels like. And then as it crouches down, it's just ready to take off in any other direction that you want it to go. It's quite odd. It's different. It's definitely unique. But does it feel secure? Yes, it definitely feels secure. It's just quite different and refreshing how the car actually slows itself down. $65 a liter. Jeez. At those prices, you will want to know that up front is a 1.6 liter twin scroll turbo that produces 167 horses and 245 Newton meters of torque, mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, inside the city, in like heavy traffic, we're getting heavy traffic now simply because, well, the alert level has gone down by a lot. People are plying the roads much more now. It's doing roughly about 7 kilometers per liter, which I guess is just average, nothing spectacular. But on the highway, with just a little bit of highway and still city, it does produce roughly about 12 kilometers per liter, so much, much better. The NVH of the 5008 is actually pretty darn good, as you would expect from a crossover. But really, it's quite superb. Whether you're inside the traffic, whether you're inside the metro in traffic or on the highway, the car is very quiet and very stable too. The suspension's actually pretty stable because we noticed that regardless of the size of the potholes that we go through, yes, there will be rattling that you feel, not here, but feel on the front wheels. But the car does very, very well that it keeps it there and it doesn't push it out all throughout the body. It doesn't translate it to the rest of the cabin, which is great. And not just when the car is heavy, because we did test it with like 5 or 6 passengers, if I'm not mistaken. But now that it's just Jack and I, it's much lighter, and obviously you'd feel as if that there would be more, shall we say, bumps and bruises that come into the cabin as we're driving inside the metro. But no, it's actually quiet, very stable. It's expected from a French car. But in all seriousness, it's actually a quite steady, stable, and smooth ride. I like it. Which brings me actually to the point that I was trying to make earlier, which is the driving position of this car, where the instrument cluster is elevated rather than seeing through the steering wheel, which is what you'd normally see in conventional cars. And then your shoulders are a bit more relaxed. It's calming to actually drive this car. Yeah, it is. There are also other cool technologies inside the car that you expect from the car, and it definitely delivers, unlike other automobiles where you expected this but you didn't get it. Here, because it's French, of course they will give it to you. For instance, you get a wireless charging pad, and it's tucked away properly. So heaven forbid that if you get into an accident, it's stowed away and it's not going to be like a projectile inside the car. The Cockpit is actually pretty good because the instrument cluster is all digital. It's a massive all digital screen, and it's colored too. The infotainment screen has Apple and Android capabilities, although the user interface might need some getting used to, because I don't know if I mentioned this, but there is no home screen per se, and the home buttons are actually the physical buttons down here, which actually look like it's a piano or the teeth of a lion. All in all, I'd say that the 5008 is really a very calming ride and drive. That's what it is. It's not gonna jolt you, and it's not exciting. It's because it's not an RCZ. This is, after all, a 7-seater crossover. It's a family car, so it's something that you're going to be taking your loved ones with you, and not just one, but several of them. So you don't want a car that's bouncy and bumpy and too exciting. You want something that is more refined, calmer. And truth be told, even though the interior of this car is quite the opposite of calming, it really truly is a calm ride and drive. But the interior, like I said, yeah, it's really something else. And if you think it looks this good during the day, man, you gotta see this thing at night. Check this out. Huh? It's beautiful, right? Très magnifique. There is also one more quirk that I wanted to show you guys, which we discovered when we were in a parking garage buying a baguette, of all things. And that's what we're gonna do right now, enter a parking garage just to show you this one last quirk. And that is, it does have a reverse camera, but it doesn't have cameras on either side, yet it's still able to give you a bird's eye view when you activate the reverse camera. How? It's so cool. The car actually paints a picture of your surroundings as if it were a Monet. Check this out. I'm gonna pop it into reverse, and as you can tell, all of this area is blacked out because the camera can't see it. But as you back up, it moves that picture all the way up front, giving you a bird's eye view of everything that's around. Look at it, it's painting it like it's a masterpiece. Is that cool or what? You don't normally get practicality with uniqueness, but yet here it stands with all its French flair, panache, one might say. That flair, however, does come with an understandable premium to it, because the 2022 Peugeot 5008 comes in at 2,260,000 Philippine pesos. Now, at that price, you're looking at roughly about the Honda CR-V, the Mazda CX-8, and the Kia Sorento. But with more than 10 dealerships promised for this year alone in the Philippines, I wouldn't be surprised if Peugeot cars become even more prominent on our Philippine roads, or my name isn't Jacques. Just to be clear, my name is Jacques.